Manatee County 911, what is the address of your emergency?
11327 White Rock Terrace. The house next door to me, she just came over. Her strange husband attacked her, and she says she shot him. His name is Doug Benefield.
Well, it was a rapid romance. Ashley and Doug Benefield married in 2016, only 13 days after their first meeting. From the outside, it appeared to be a fairy tale, but 4 years later, Doug was shot and killed.
Benefield, a former ballerina, faces a charge of second-degree murder for the death of her estranged husband, retired Naval Lieutenant Commander Doug Benefield.
So what we're going to see in this case is really two competing theories on what happened on the day that he was killed.
The defense claimed that Ashley was defending herself from an abusive husband.
She came in, she was quite hysterical. I didn't know who was banging on my door. Said that he attacked her and she shot him.
Prosecution says it was her last resort to get custody of their daughter.
Doug was found on the floor. He had been shot twice, and deputies said there was no evidence of a struggle or abuse, and Doug was facing away from his wife at the time of the shooting.
You've got to show that you were in reasonable fear of your life at that moment, not a compilation of all bad behavior over the years that he was mentally abusive, and that gives you the right to just gun him down while he's helping you move.
The judge has denied defendant Ashley Benefield's stand your ground defense.
And these two were in a bitter custody battle, and there were court hearings after court hearings.
She has a credibility issue. Her credibility has been attacked and compromised in various court proceedings.
And ultimately, it's going to be up to a jury to determine whether or not they believe she acted in self-defense or whether or not she murdered this victim in this case.
The relationship between Ashley and Doug Benefield was a tumultuous one. On the previous episode, we dug into the poison allegations from Ashley, and I went down a full-on rabbit hole with the lab that she used to get the testing results that claimed that she had been poisoned. But the poison allegations weren't the only issues between the Benefields. From the time they met in August of 2016 until the time of Doug's death in September of 2020, Doug and Ashley had a toxic relationship. They were stuck in a cycle of court battles and abuse allegations, followed by attempts at reconciliation and future plans. It seemed like Doug was constantly looking at how he can repair the damage done to his marriage, while Ashley flip-flopped between trying to make things work and trying to have the court prevent Doug from being in the lives of her and their daughter. During 4 years of marriage, the couple only lived together for about 8 months, and the following 3 years were spent in constant tug-of-war between the Benefields and the court system. It would take almost another 4 years after Doug's death for Ashley to go to court for his murder. She claims self-defense, but the state of Florida says that the evidence suggests otherwise. There was a hearing for stand your ground law, a murder trial, and a verdict. But post-trial allegations and bombshells may mean that this fairy tale turned true crime soap opera is still far from over. This is 13th Juror Podcast, where we unravel complex court cases and present them as compelling stories, breaking down the details and weighing evidence from a non-legal perspective, just like jurors do. I'm your host, Brandy Churchwell, and on today's episode, we will discuss the Black Swan murder trial, the case against Ashley Benefield. By January of 2018, it seemed like Ashley Benefield was trying to figure out how to keep Doug Benefield out of her life. The poisoning allegations had started, but it definitely didn't end there. Ashley was back in Florida with no intentions on returning to Charleston. So Doug began looking for a place nearby, knowing that that's the only way that he would be able to see the baby after she was born. He made a few trips to Florida and had a realtor show him some options. And when Ashley heard that Doug was in the area for a short trip, she tried to enlist the help of Doug's cousin, Tommy, to get some inside information from him. Ashley had befriended Tommy, who seemed to be very supportive of her at the time, though he didn't seem to understand her intentions. On New Year's Day 2018, Ashley began texting Tommy about Doug's trip to Florida.
Can you maybe text Doug? Like get him to say something to you about buying a house here over text? Or even just to admit he is in fact in Sarasota? Closer to my mom or something like that. I don't know how you would start up a conversation without it being strange. Any ideas? I just want to know more of what is going on and would love to be able to have it in text so you could take screenshots and send me so I could send them to the detective. Still trying to understand his angle with this one. Ugh. Or even ask him why he is moving. Like, does he plan to sell his house in South Carolina? I hardly slept last night, just all freaked out. Can't stop thinking about this.
Ashley hadn't seen Doug for months, but she tells Tommy that Doug is stalking her. Tommy responds to Ashley, telling her that it was just a short trip, just for a day, and Doug would already be back in South Carolina at that point. She messages Tommy a few more times in the next couple of weeks, but there are no responses in those texts. About 3 weeks before the baby was due, Doug's attorney, Stephanie, reaches out to Ashley in hopes of setting up an agreement that would allow Doug to be there for the birth of his daughter. An email with a PDF was sent on March 15th, telling Ashley that Doug wanted to be there and asking if there was a way that they could work it out. His attorney did also say that if Ashley wasn't comfortable with it, then Doug understood that and he would give her space. Within 24 hours of receiving the email from Doug's attorney, Ashley texted Tommy asking if there were any updates on Doug's house search. She said that she had a hunch, but she would love confirmation. And she also asked if Doug had said anything to Tommy about doing apologetics with her church. Tommy said he didn't have any updates to give. Ashley then checked herself into Tampa General Hospital 3 weeks early without telling Doug, or his attorney, or anyone in his family. She told the doctors that she had been poisoned, and she began the process to have the baby early. Tampa records show that the toxicologist said that they didn't believe her story. The records provided didn't match the symptoms reported, and it was inconsistent with the lab results, so they didn't believe that she was poisoned. Regardless, the hospital ended up doing a C-section to deliver the baby on March 19th. Ashley named the baby Emerson, which isn't the name that she and Doug had chosen, and she didn't give Emerson the last name Benefield either. She also left Doug off the birth certificate and blocked him from getting Emerson's birth records every chance she could. About a month after Emerson's birth, Ashley filed papers with the court requesting a restraining order against Doug and requesting that he be denied visitation and custody. On the documents, Ashley says that Doug has multiple handguns and knives, several assault rifles, shotguns, and a .50 caliber machine gun with scopes. When asked in a deposition if he had an assault rifle, Doug responded, quote, "I have the same AR-15 that she has 2 of," end quote. And he also said that he has a 12-gauge shotgun that he hadn't fired in more than a decade, and that he's never owned a .50 caliber machine gun ever. Ashley also said that Doug is violent when he's drinking, and when asked if Doug would be violent to an officer, she said yes. Ashley also included the package that she said that she received from Doug that she claimed was poison, and said that Doug would make threats to her, like if he can't have her, no one can, or telling her that he can make people disappear, or telling her that he has trackers on the cars and claiming that he's killed and poisoned people and gotten away with it. Doug denies ever saying any of these things. Like the previous injunctions that Ashley filed, the court found no appearance of immediate danger, so no temporary injunction was granted, but a hearing was set for later. She wasn't ready to give up that easy, though. Ashley filed an affidavit saying that she was in fear of her safety because of Doug's behavior and threats. Again, the court denies the temporary injunction because of no immediate danger. The court battles continue as Doug files a parenting plan request. Now, in the documents, Doug says that Ashley suffers from mental health disorders originating as early as 15 years old when her father abandoned her and her mother with the news of having another family. They say Ashley indicates symptoms indicative of delusional disorder, psychosis, and that she can't tell what's real from what's imagined. He includes examples like claiming that he sent her poisoned tea, or accusing him of killing his wife Renee, who died of an undiagnosed heart issue, or claiming that he's under FBI investigation for these things, accusing him of making people disappear, trying to force her to take drugs, and false abuse allegations that were determined to be unfounded. Documents go on to say that Ashley has a large cache of weapons and that she tried to engage him in life-threatening acts, isolated herself to an unusual degree. She's symptomatic of a delusional disorder, suffers from mood episodes, and that she subjected him and others to extensive hysterical rages and tirades that serve no legitimate purpose. Doug requests that the court have Ashley complete a psychological evaluation, and he asks for a temporary exclusive custody arrangement until this is done, and requests a parenting plan be put in place. Ashley's attempts at filing injunctions and keeping Doug away from Emerson weren't quite working out how she had anticipated. And now, with Doug filing allegations against her, Ashley began to work on another plan. On May 20th of 2018, 2 days after Doug files with the court, Ashley reached out to Doug's cousin Tommy again, this time in hopes of involving Doug's other family members in order to get information that she could use against him.
Let me know when you talk with Dee. I have an update for you.
Cool, on another plane.
Hey, can you send me Doug's brother's contact information?
Which one?
Who do you suggest I start with?
I don't understand what you mean by who you should start with.
I was just thinking about calling and seeing what they have to say. I'm working on something. I'll tell you when we talk.
I don't believe either one of them will be as open as I am.
Gotcha. I'll tell you my thoughts when we talk again so you can let me know what you think.
Meanwhile, Doug's attorney is at work trying to prove that Ashley is lying in order to gain full custody of their daughter. She files with the court to request Ashley's medical records from South Carolina and Florida, plus any documentation for allegations that she has made against Doug. A request for separation of support is also filed, and an emergency motion from Doug for Ashley to produce hair follicle test results and to do a monitored hair follicle test for her and the baby. He also files an emergency motion for temporary custody. Ashley requests more time to produce these things, but she's subpoenaed shortly thereafter. A deposition is done where Doug addresses some of the allegations against him. Doug says that despite what Ashley is accusing him of, he drinks almost no alcohol. And when he drinks, which is very infrequently, it's beer. And even then, it's only 1 or 2. He said he's never even been intoxicated while he was married to Ashley. He acknowledges that he hired a realtor looking at townhouses in Florida so that he could be near his baby, but tells the court that he hasn't been to Ashley's mom's since they split, despite what a neighbor said about a voice sounding like it was him. But Doug said that he did drive by Ashley's mom's house with the realtor when they were looking at houses in January or February. But he said that the realtor was just showing him houses and didn't even know where Ashley's mom lived. Doug says that Ashley tried to show Eva love in her own way, but he says that she failed, especially as a step-parent, to recognize that Eva's mother had just died. And he says that Ashley failed to understand what a 14 going on 15-year-old teenager needed and what she didn't need. So she tried on several occasions, but he said Eva rejected her. Doug was fighting for custody of a 4-month-old daughter that he had never met, and Ashley was fighting to get a restraining order against Doug, who she hadn't seen in almost a year. Judge Moreland had not ruled in favor of Ashley previously, so less than a week before the hearing, Ashley sought to have Judge Moreland disqualified. Her request was denied, and Ashley appealed it while also asking to have the hearing continued. Those requests were also denied. At the hearing in late July of 2018, Ashley and Doug Benefield saw each other again for the first time in about 10 months. Doug wanted Ashley to have a psychological evaluation because he said he couldn't believe that her allegations were pure maliciousness. He believed that it must be some kind of underlying mental health disorder that would make her make these crazy allegations to ruin his entire life. He wanted Emerson removed from Ashley's home until they could get this figured out. He wanted to know if it was some type of mental health problem or if Ashley's mom could be poisoning them. A child protective specialist testified that she didn't seem to have any concerns with Ashley and she saw no signs of abuse. But she said that Doug appeared concerned for his child and frustrated that not enough was being done. Ashley got on the stand and claimed to be abused and scared of her husband during this hearing. Despite previous discussion that Ashley went to Florida because of being sick with her pregnancy, her attorney now claimed that she had fled to Florida to escape Doug's violence. Ashley testified that she would hear blood-curdling screams out of nowhere because Doug and his teenage daughter Eva would argue. She claimed that Doug made her tea all the time and that it would make her nauseous, but he would become angry if she didn't drink it. She claimed that Eva would confide in her about being scared of Doug, as well as about doing drugs before Ashley ever came into the picture. These are all things that Eva has denied, and Ashley also said that Doug would hurt the animals just to punish her, and that she was scared that he would do that to their child as well. Doug's attorney fires back, pointing out that Ashley was shopping on Doug's cards at the time, spending thousands and thousands of dollars a month on clothes, Victoria's Secret, restaurants, and other things. She told the court that her loving and affectionate messages to Doug were just an attempt to appease him because she was actually scared of him. She said that it was heartbreaking that somebody you trust would do something to you. The judge didn't buy it, and she had some very harsh words for Ashley.
Because I just read a report by a doctor that just indicated that he had done a full battery of psychological evaluations on Mr. Benefield in this particular case. He had absolutely no concern of self-harm, domestic violence, or any other type of spurious activity on the behalf of Mr. Benefield. Then we move on to the entire insinuation that there is some type of poisoning going on in this particular case. There is not a single scintilla of credible evidence that Ms. Benefield has ever been poisoned or suffered from any illness of any poison. Court finds that Dr. Hilliard's testimony was suspect. I don't think that the court finds that he reviewed one record appropriately. And in comparison to Dr. Sawyer, I think his testimony, in a word, was bunk. The court will find there is one incident of alleged domestic violence, and I got to tell you, it is de minimis, even though it's huge whenever how it was executed, the shot into the ceiling. The court is going to find that at no time was the shot by Mr. Benefield at or in the direction of Miss Benefield. The court has seen Mr. Benefield testify, and the court finds that Mr. Benefield is taking on responsibility for that single misstep. But that is a remote type of domestic violence that has occurred. Subsequent to that, it is clear that Ms. Benefield continued to pursue a relationship and to have child with this gentleman, that she had a lavish wedding, invited numerous people there, had many people that she could have confided in, saying, I'm in a hellish situation, things are out of control. Just last week he shot a bullet in the ceiling. That's absolutely not what happens. Instead, she goes through with this lavish wedding. She goes on developing a ballet with her husband at that time, posing in magazines, portraying to everybody in the world that this is a very happy marriage, that we're going down, we're going to start this national ballet at a significant cost, both emotionally, physically, and financially to the parties. That she finally they finally find out that in July 2017 they have conceived a child, and that or they think that that's the date they've conceded in retroactive review, which tells this court that during that period after the shot, that they were still engaging in an intimate relationship. The court does not find credible any type of animal cruelty in this particular case, nor does the court find that the other incidences alleged of punching the wall were ever directed completely at her, nor were they meant for intimidation. The court's also going to find that at 3/2017, they do find about the pregnancy. It's confirmed. And at that time, because of illnesses due to the pregnancy, it is determined as a family, as well as because of the ballet, that they're going to move Miss Benefield to Florida from South Carolina. During all this period of time, what we have is a household that is continuing on. Ms. Benefield being in the home, not making anyone alert. The medical records are devoid of any conversations between her and people that would have been providing protection, those being doctors, etc., indicating in the least that she has any type of poisoning that is appearing in her system, that she has been the victim of domestic violence, and or that this child, Eva, has been the victim of domestic violence. Then we go on, and suddenly we have, she moves to Florida, but even in Florida, we have Irma come through, I think September 11th, that weekend. Mr. Benefield comes all the way down. He makes sure she has a generator she needs for the storm. He then leaves, and she feels comfortable enough and well enough to go all the way back up to the home that she shared with Mr. Benefield to collect property and transport those items down to Florida for her own use, and without any fear that this gentleman is going to harm her when she's up there. The court will, one of the other things allude to as far as credibility problems were the issues concerning the split records that she's asking the Lakewood Ranch to have to, I guess, somehow cover any type of problems or contradiction there might be with the poisoning allegations, as well as the emails that were introduced today between the cousin of Mr. Benefield and Miss Benefield, I guess, trying to curry some kind of upper hand in in either of these two cases against Mr. Benefield. Court's also going to find that the wife has at this time demonstrated a complete disregard for allowing Mr. Benefield to have any active role in the birth of his child and or the life of his child that he has now not had any contact with. The court's going to find there's been no violation of any injunction. The court did look at and has listened to the testimonies that were provided concerning the injunction that was entered. Quite frankly, it sounds like the court was, when you listen to the transcript, was actually telling both of them they needed to stay away from each other, and that certainly there was no violation of it whenever there was the oral pronouncement, only to be followed by a written pronouncement. Court is also finds there are some issues with the credibility of Miss Benefield when she's actively sitting here telling this court she doesn't like to have publicity, but at the same token she's participating in articles concerning the alleged poison, etc. So with that in mind, the court is going to find that at this time there is absolutely no evidence, and I'm saying no evidence. I'm not saying by the preponderance of the evidence standard. That hasn't even been close to that there's been a indication that there's an immediate likelihood of domestic violence. There's only the one remote incident, and as of today, there's no reasonably prudent or logical person would think that you're the threat, that you're being threatened by immediate domestic violence. So for those reasons, the court is going to deny the request for an injunction in this particular case.
Some say financial crime is victimless, but that definitely isn't the case, especially when it ends in murder. You need to check out Money Crimes, a new show hosted by best-selling author and entrepreneur Nicole Lapin. Money Crimes is about the world's biggest financial scandals and how they can spiral out of control in ways you'd never expect. From cunning Ponzi schemes to cutthroat politics and even murderous con artists, you'll learn that the finance world is more dangerous than you'd ever imagined, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from it. Money Crimes is a Crime House original powered by Pave Studios. New episodes release every Thursday. Just search for Money Crimes. That's MoneyCrimes. Ashley's request for a restraining order was denied, and Doug was awarded visitation for the daughter that he had still yet to meet. Soon after the hearing, he was awarded increased parenting time, shared parental decisions, and full medical decision-making for Emerson, taking that away from Ashley. On September 21st, 2018, Doug Benefield is finally going to meet his daughter, Emerson. Because of the extensive allegations, the court ordered that the exchange was to happen at the sheriff's office. Here's Doug's attorney, Stephanie Murphy, describing that interaction.
So when I arrived, I got into Doug's truck and we just waited because we were there early. And then he saw Ashley arrive with the baby. And so he pulled the truck closer, and then we both got out of the car and started walking toward Ashley. And then it was just an odd kind of interaction, actually. She turned to me with this nasty look on her face and said to Doug,
I'll sustain this to the characterization.
She turned to Doug and said, "Are you dating her?" And so obviously we both said, "Well, of course not, no." And then I hung back, and Doug then was standing there, and Ashley approached him with Emerson, and they started talking. Eventually she let him hold the baby, and they just kept talking for a few minutes. Then I was advised that they were going to be leaving together, strangely, that Ashley was going to be going with them for the time sharing.
Stephanie didn't trust Ashley at all. She felt like after all of the horrible allegations that Ashley had made to try to ruin Doug's life, there's no way that she could just jump back into being with him. She felt like Ashley had an ulterior motive, and she wanted Doug to know about this. But unfortunately, Doug didn't listen. In the following months, Doug and Ashley began trying to work on some things in their relationship. They enlisted the help of a marriage counselor and were even photographed together at a black tie event that January. But while they may have appeared to be the picture-perfect couple in their formal wear and smiles, their relationship and Ashley's allegations were far from over. On Easter weekend of 2019, the whole family went out to dinner, and Ashley and her mother pulled Doug's daughter Eva aside. They asked Eva if she felt safe living with her father. And then Ashley told Eva that her dad killed her mom and that he was going to kill Ashley and her mom too. I can't imagine what it would be like for a teenager who lost her mother so tragically to be told that it was actually her father who was responsible. Eva's the one who came home from school and found her mother dead. So to be told that it was murder, not a medical situation, must have been incredibly traumatizing for her. Eva wrote in a statement that she tried multiple times to diffuse the situation by telling them that her dad has been nothing but supportive. But it seemed like Ashley and her mom were still on a mission. Things weren't seeming to get any better, and that summer, Doug grew suspicious of Ashley. He sometimes had trouble reaching her and suspected that she was lying to him. Doug had a condo in the Sarasota area at the time, but his lease was running out. He and Ashley had decided that he would move his stuff into Ashley's mom's house. So he emptied the storage unit and got ready to move everything in. But it didn't go as planned, because when he packed up and got ready to move in that day, Ashley ghosted him. That August, Ashley showed up to drop off Emerson wearing an engagement ring, though she claims that it was just a regular ring. Doug secretly placed a tracking device on her car and hired a private investigator. His suspicions were confirmed when the PI told him that Ashley was seeing someone else. They separated again, but this time it was Doug's idea. When Doug ended things with Ashley, she once again began making accusations against him and filing for injunctions. She was fighting him for full custody while accusing him of physically and sexually abusing their young daughter. Psych evaluations were done through CPS, and an investigation showed that, once again, Ashley's allegations were unfounded. There was no evidence of any sort of abuse. Even during all of this, somehow Doug still hoped that Ashley would drop the allegations and that they could somehow be a family again. He even forgave her for the affair and thanked her for giving birth to their precious daughter. Throughout the spring of 2020, the allegations of abuse continued, though each time the investigation found no evidence of abuse. Ashley claimed that Emerson had significant emotional and behavioral changes, dramatic changes to her demeanor that included hysterical meltdowns, fear of leaving the house, separation anxiety, nightmares, night terrors, and aggressive behavior. all stemming from her shared parenting with Doug, according to Ashley. She claimed that the young girl was acting out in a sexually explicit manner, consistent with sexual abuse or being exposed to pornography. And she claimed that the behavior escalated each time that she interacted with Doug. Time after time, Ashley would file a complaint, it would be investigated, and it would be determined to be unfounded. With the court not giving Ashley the outcome that she was hoping for, she seemed to have a change of heart that spring. She texted Doug that she wanted to talk, and Doug told his attorney, Stephanie Murphy, that he had high hopes for this. He felt like Ashley was finally owning her mistakes and even wanted them to see a real trauma therapist together. Doug and Ashley began going on dates and spending time together, and she even suggested that they move to Maryland, where Ashley's mom had just inherited a house when her grandmother died. While Doug was hoping that this was a fresh start for the family that he wanted so desperately to repair, his attorney Stephanie had major concerns. She warned Doug that Ashley hadn't had any luck with her accusations against him in Florida, so she was worried that Ashley could be using this as a chance to look for a new jurisdiction and a new judge, someone that she could possibly appeal to that would actually believe her claims. Doug acknowledged that this was a concern, and he told his attorney that no matter how much he hoped Ashley had changed, he also didn't trust her. Regardless, Doug still had high hopes for the future. When he filed for divorce, Ashley had requested a mediation, which they completed. In September of 2020, they began preparing for this new Maryland adventure together. They agreed to sign a joint stipulation that dismissed the marriage dissolution, which would stop the court proceeding for the divorce that was set up for that month. Ashley would then dismiss the injunction, and there was a joint motion for the release of the psychological evaluations and reports. Dr. Broder's report concluded that Doug had positive interactions with Emerson. And at Ashley's trial, the state said that Ashley knew that this would come out. They said that she knew that things would lean in favor of Doug, and despite her excessive allegations against him, the doctor saw no issues. So while Ashley is telling Doug that they're going to be reconciling and starting this life together, she was apparently telling Dr. Broder that there's no chance of reconciliation. She told the doctor that she's moving to Maryland with her mom, but made it very clear that Doug wasn't going to be with them. Toward the end of the evaluation period, Ashley had become increasingly frustrated with the system because things weren't going her way. He also noted that Ashley never said that Doug physically harmed her, and the only examples that she could give of their issues were things that had happened years ago while she was living in South Carolina. He also noted that Ashley didn't appear to be fearful of Doug or worried about physical violence, but she did say that he was jealous, he had a bad temper, and she feared that he had poisoned his first wife. With the psych evaluations set to be released on September 30th, Doug would soon be aware that everything that Ashley was telling him was a lie. The week leading up to Doug's death, he was in Florida going back and forth to Ashley's mom's house and spending time with her and Emerson. Their texts showed no sign of tension or anger. There were good morning and good night texts daily, pictures sent back and forth, videos of them laughing together, discussing their plans to dismiss the divorce proceedings and the injunction against him, and even discussing them wanting to get all of that done quickly rather than dragging it out. The morning of September 27th, Doug texts Ashley to tell her good morning and gives her a rundown of some errands that he has to run that day before coming over there to help pack the U-Haul. Doug took his dog Sully to get his shots and then dropped him off at the doggy spa to get groomed around 3 p.m. He stopped and got some more boxes and tape and then arrived at Ashley's mom's house around 4 o'clock. Based on his text to Ashley, we know that he left again and returned sometime after 5:30. Ashley's mom took Emerson to the park, leaving Ashley and Doug alone at her house together, and the 911 call came in from the neighbor at 6:56 p.m. So, what happened during that hour-and-a-half time frame? Ashley Benefield says that she was in fear for her life, and she fatally shot Doug in order to protect herself. Prosecutors say that her story doesn't add up, and that she shot him so that she could move to Maryland and raise her daughter without having to share parenting time. During her trial, Ashley testifies in her own defense, telling the jury her version of events.
Yes, we had discussed that my things would be going in last, right at the front, so they would be easy to get out first. At one point, he had me help him load one of the larger pieces into the back of the U-Haul truck. And when I was up in the truck with him, I realized that everything had been all like mixed together and it was no longer separated. And I pointed that out to him, and he got really offended and upset. He said, "It shouldn't be your stuff, your house, my house." I tried to change the subject. I could see how upset he was getting. So I wanted to kind of alleviate that. He was getting more upset and aggressive and threatening. I was trying to get him to leave. I kept suggesting that maybe we should be done, saying I was tired. We should just wrap it up for the day. We were in the living room, and as he came up to me, instead of walking past me, he walked like right into me, like a body check. He like bumped me. It caught me off guard. I almost fell. I like stumbled. He was clearly hostile. He was mumbling under his breath and was glaring at me. I could see that it was escalating, and I didn't want him to blow up at me. We were in the garage, and it was very much like the living room. I had just suggested strongly that I wanted to be done for the day, and he, as he came up to me, he walked right into me. Again, body checked me. We were in the hallway, and we were coming opposite directions towards each other, and he had a box, and as he walked up to me, he looked me in the eye, and he drove the corner of the box up into me. I apologized because I could see how upset he was, and I didn't want him to get more mad at me. We ended up in our daughter's bedroom, and he started screaming at me. He said, "Shut the f*** up." He started calling me names. And he said, "I can see what you're doing. You're trying to get me to leave." He said, "I don't have to leave. I can stay and spend the night if I want to because I'm your husband." I was scared. I ran to try to leave the house to the front door. He stopped me. He grabbed me by the hand and he yanked me back. I'm not really sure how he did it, but he spun around so he was in front of me, between me and the door. He said, "Where the f*** do you think you're going?" I just blurted it out. I said, "I'm done and you need to leave now." He said, "You can't leave me." He hit me on the side of the head. He had never actually hit me before. I ran to my room because I was scared. I had my gun. I heard the door hitting the doorstop. Doug was standing in the doorway. His face was red. Like the veins were bulging in his neck. The way he was looking at me didn't even look like Doug. His eyes were black. He said, "You're fucking done." I held the gun in front of me and I said, "Stop." And he turned and he got into this it was like a fighting stance. I got low and he started moving his arms and his hands around. He was making these jerking motions. I thought he was gonna kill me. He started coming towards me and then he lunged at me and I just started pulling the trigger. And he just kept coming. I remember trying to move to get away from him, but he kept coming at me. I was trying to get away from him. I was terrified. It was like his feet slipped out from under him and his legs went up in the air.
Ashley said that she ran next door, the gun still with her, inconsolable, crying, and asking her neighbor to call 911. When sheriff's deputies arrived, Doug was lying on the floor of Ashley's bedroom, bleeding from his chest, arm, and leg. There were 2 bullets lodged in the walls and another on the floor. Deputies listened to Ashley's story, but had some questions about how she said that things went down. During the trial, multiple witnesses explained why this doesn't seem to be a plausible explanation. First of all, Ashley didn't really have any injuries, aside from a small scratch that they said appeared to be old and very minor. Also, based on the entry wounds on Doug, it appeared that he wasn't even facing her when she shot him. The prosecutors also pushed back on Ashley's version of events during cross-examination, and in the most dramatic moment of the trial, had her step out of the box and reenact how she said that Doug was coming after her, igniting a social media firestorm because of the controversial tactic from the state, as well as Ashley's response. The trial came to a close, and the prosecution and defense both had their final opportunity to address the jury, giving their own version of events. If tossing and turning is part of your nightly routine, it's time to learn the secret to a great night's sleep. And that is with our new sponsor, GhostBed. Because the right mattress for you can make a world of difference, whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or anything in between. GhostBed is a family-owned business with over 20 years of experience crafting high-quality mattresses and sleep products. Not only do they make amazing mattresses, they've got a team of sleep experts to help you along the way. You can chat with a sleep expert online, or take their quiz to get matched with the perfect mattress. It's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to mattresses, and the way you sleep makes a difference. If you're a side sleeper, you might need a little more cushioning on your shoulders. That's just one of the things that you can learn from GhostBed. Take advantage of savings going on now with some of their best prices of the year. Plus, 13th Juror listeners can take 50% off site-wide. Just visit ghostbed.com/brandy and use code BRANDY at checkout. Every GhostBed mattress comes with a 101-night sleep trial, so you can try it out risk-free. And with their free and fast shipping, you could get your order within a few days. Want to be sleeping better by next week? Check out ghostbed.com/brandy and use code BRANDY at checkout for 50% off site-wide. That's BRANDI. Ashley's fate is then handed over to the jury. Ashley claimed self-defense, and she filed a motion to dismiss the charges based on Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Stand Your Ground is only available in certain states. It's a law that allows for people to use deadly force in self-defense situations without a duty to retreat, as long as they aren't engaged in criminal activity and are in a place that they have a right to be. If the person reasonably believes that they are in danger and need to use force to prevent death, great bodily harm, or the commission of a forcible felony, then they're legally able to do so. There was a Stand Your Ground hearing in 2023, and details came out about the night that Ashley shot Doug at her mother's home. The investigators thought that it was odd that Ashley had 2 guns just readily available in an empty room when everything else is packed up in a U-Haul truck. They also thought that the entrance wound on the fatal shot would not have been on Doug's side if he had been attacking her. There was no stippling on his shirt either, which means that the gun had to be at least 3 to 7 feet away, which also contradicted the version of events that Ashley had given. Doug's family attended the hearing, and his cousin Tommy said that the story that Ashley gave was implausible, like much of what she made up about their relationship. The judge denied the motion, which doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't self-defense, but it does mean that the state had sufficient evidence to prove that it was not justifiable self-defense, so it's going to be up to the jury to decide at trial. So the state first has to prove to the jury that Ashley intentionally shot and killed Doug, which is pretty easy since she admits to doing so. Then the defense must make a clear and convincing case that Ashley acted in self-defense. After that, the state must prove that Ashley did not act in self-defense. I know it gets a little confusing. The trial lasted for 6 days, and the jury deliberated for more than 6 hours before returning a verdict.
The State of Florida versus Ashley Benefield, case number 2020 CF 3014. Verdict. We, the jury, finds as follows as to the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of manslaughter, a lesser included offense. Did Ashley Benefield actually carry a firearm? Yes. Did Ashley Benefield discharge a firearm? Yes. Did Ashley Benefield, as a result of discharging the firearm, cause death to Douglas Benefield? Yes. So say we all this 30th day of July, 2024, at Bradenton, Manatee County, Florida, Cheryl Forterson.
They didn't find her guilty of second-degree murder, but they did find her guilty of manslaughter. Ashley, who had been out on bond, was immediately taken into custody. She faces 11 to 30 years in prison and is scheduled to be sentenced next month. Doug's daughter, Eva, reacted to the news on her social media.
After waiting all afternoon to get a verdict, and she was convicted of manslaughter after 4 years of waiting. My dad got the justice that he deserves. I will be talking more about the trial once I have my thoughts collected. I have a lot of things that I want to say. Love you guys. Good night.
I had planned to release the final episode of this 3-part series last week, but there were some developments that caused me to wait until this week so that I could hopefully have some updates for you. After the verdict, Ashley's defense team filed a motion with the court, arguing that there was juror misconduct, including one juror who is alleged to have had a cell phone in the jury room. The trial was live streamed, and during Verdict Watch, a YouTube account that goes by the screen name That Hoodie Guy was in a chat on the YouTube channel for Law and Crime, claiming to be the brother of a juror who said that they had smuggled a flip phone into the jury room and was giving updates on deliberations in real time. No outside communication or electronic devices are allowed during deliberations, so Ashley's defense team argues that this was a breach of the rules, which can affect Ashley's right to a fair trial. On Monday, the judge ordered that the jurors each be brought back and questioned about the allegations. The questions will be narrowly limited to the scope of the allegations, specifically whether or not they knew that a cell phone was in the room or if someone kept using the restroom repeatedly. The interviews are set to take place on October 4th, so I'll provide an update for that when it happens. This has been a long and winding road for the family of Doug Benefield. His daughter Eva has taken to social media, using TikTok as a way to express her thoughts and feelings and cope with the loss of both of her parents. She also created a successful t-shirt line, which she promotes on her social media as well. Ashley and Doug's daughter, Emerson, was a source of controversy when she photographed outside of the courthouse with a sign during her mother's trial, protesting alongside her grandmother for her mom to be allowed to go free. The dancers from American National Ballet have all moved on to other companies or jobs, and the Facebook page that sparked such controversy is still there, along with Ashley's comments. Doug's ashes were scattered at Sullivan's Island Beach, followed by a celebration of his life. His family and friends worked to move forward from the tragic story, and they're determined to have Doug remembered for the brave, strong, kind, and godly man that they said that he was. Next week will be 4 years since Doug's death, and it seems like the curtain may finally be getting ready to close on the Black Swan murder trial. If you're enjoying 13th Juror Podcast, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify, and share this episode with your friends. For more information, photos, and episode guides, visit 13thjurorpodcast.com.